Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
It's been 5 months since pension reform passed, and Treasurer Gina Raimondo's star has soared. Glowing profiles in the national press and guest appearances on cable talk shows. But back home in Rhode Island, things look as grim as ever. Municipal pensions are still hemorrhaging money, and the capital city could be facing bankruptcy. What does a treasurer think we should do, and what is her own political future? This week on Newsmakers, General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. Good morning, welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, Eyewitness News analyst Arlene Violet and WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Treasurer.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yesterday, we tape on a Friday, the legislature heard testimony from both sides on a set of bills proposed by the governor designed to help struggling cities and towns. Some of the most polarizing aspects include giving municipal leaders the ability to freeze COLAs. Why weren't you there supporting these measures?
Before we begin, I would just like to take a minute to recognize the two young men that have fallen in the line of duty, one in Afghanistan and one in our backyard in Providence. And we're taping this on a Sunday. It's been a rough week for those families, and I just want to recognize them and let the families know that we're all thinking of them. With respect to the question on the COLA, why wasn't I there testifying? As you know, as treasurer, my office has no authority or jurisdiction as it relates to municipal pensions. Having said that, it's a problem. We have to fix it. It's an urgent problem. It was addressed in the legislation that I was part of crafting last year, and this year my office has been hard at work working with municipal leaders as they go about doing the work of fixing their pensions. So we are, I think the message is we are rolling up our sleeves, the governor, the treasurer, the mayors, hard at work, completing the work that we started last year around pensions, bringing that to the municipal area this year.
Do you support that aspect of the governor's bills?
So let's take a step back, and I think it's very important we realize what the bills do and what they don't do, and then I'll offer my thoughts. These bills do not solve the municipal pension problem, and I think that's extremely important for the viewer to understand. When the General Assembly passed pension reform last November, it fixed the pension reform. It fixed the Rhode Island state pensions. The day after it passed, it cut the unfunded liability in half. The governor's legislation is not designed to do that. What it's designed to do, in theory, is to provide some tools to municipal leaders to, better do the job of fixing pensions. And what they're also designed to do is to continue to highlight the critical problem that we have with municipal pensions. And yes, I think that is a good idea. So I do think that if the General Assembly can pass legislation which puts some new tools into the hands of municipal leaders as they do their work, that's a good thing.
Why haven't you been more outspoken about it? I don't mean to jeopardize it here, but been outspoken about it. I mean, it seems like your silence on this is deafening.
I disagree with you, Tim. I have worked very hard this year with mayors and municipal leaders, helping them as they do the work with the pensions. We've held
I'm talking about these bills, though. I certainly recognize you've done a lot of that work with classes, if you will, with these cities and towns, but I'm talking about the governor's bills.
As I said, these aren't my bills. He prepared them independently of me.
Were you consulted?
I was not consulted. The governor did not ask for my opinion. I wasn't part of the drafting process. And again, my office...
Would you have if you were asked?
Of course, absolutely. There's no doubt that I am absolutely committed to fixing this state and fixing the pension problem. And my office, I believe, has a lot to add as it relates to expertise in the pension issue.
As you know, the courts require a scalpel approach, not a sledgehammer, particularly when there's an abridgment of contract rights. From what you've seen through the workshops that you've done, the work you say you're doing closely with the municipalities, are places like Providence, West Warwick, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, do you feel they have the sufficient analyses to support even using the legislation that the governor has proposed?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what Arlene brings up is, I think, the right question. Clearly we have a municipal pension problem. and we have to fix it, and we can't delay. The work has to happen right now. It also has to stand up in court. And the only way it's going to stand up in court is if we do the necessary homework to prove, when it's challenged in court, that whether it's COLA suspension or whatever, was reasonable and necessary to serve a public purpose. That's not my rule. That's the court's rule. It's well established. Now, I think what you're seeing is the mayors are doing the work. I have been unbelievably encouraged by the workshops we've been having. You know, Ted's been there. They've been well attended. These mayors have been asking questions. They're doing the work. So we're going to get this done. We are going to get this done. A year ago, when I said we were going to fix the state pension problem, there were some skeptics. We did it. I believe these mayors are going to fix their pension problems. The political will is there. And my office...
And is the analysis there?
And we're trying to get them there. We're trying to get them there. Let's face it, mayors have a tough job. They have limited staff, they have tight budgets, and these are serious problems. Is the analysis there? Maybe not yet, but I believe we're working together to get them to a place where it will be there by the time they make the changes.
Last night I was at the Province City Hall, much later than I wished to be, but they passed, and I shouldn't make light of it, a sweeping overhaul of their own pensions in Providence, 50-0 unanimously, suspending COLAs, taking a number of other steps. They made sure to point out they had a big, thick report full of legal opinions on there. Do you think they made the right decision last night?
Well, I haven't had a chance to look. You said it just happened last night. I haven't had a chance to go through it, so I don't feel comfortable commenting on precisely what they did. But, you know, hats off to them. You know, I think the mayor and the city council deserve a huge amount of credit for taking on a tough issue, doing it thoughtfully, and passing a law to make it happen.
So you weren't briefed on that proposal before it went forward?
No, I was not briefed on the proposal, nor would have I, expected to be. I mean, the city council and the mayor are running their city. We've talked. They know I'm here to help them. My door's always open. They're doing an excellent job, and I think it's to your point, Arlene. You know, they did the analysis. They're moving it forward. They made the assessment. It was reasonable and necessary. And now we'll see what happens in the courts.
That's exactly what I want to ask you about. And pivoting back to the state law that passed last November, it's amazing that we're already talking about other stuff, considering how sweeping that was. You've expressed a lot of confidence the law will hold up in court, but there is a risk it won't.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we've seen judgments going against state and city governments so far in the past couple of months on various issues related to contracts. What would the impact be if the law was struck down?
Devastating for the state of Rhode Island. You know, I believe that law is legal and was legally permissible. I think the state did all of the necessary groundwork and analysis to make the case that it was reasonable and necessary. There were no contracts involved, as opposed, on the local level, there's contracts.
So there's an implied contract, the Judge Taft-Carter said so far.
So far, summary judgment. It hasn't been ruled on, completely through the system. So I think we're going to win. I think we should win. But let me be very clear. The bill, that pension reform bill that the General Assembly passed in November, saved municipalities over $100 million this fiscal year alone, and over $1 billion in the next 20 years. It saved the taxpayer of Rhode Island over $4 billion in the next 20 years. If that law is repealed, the municipalities will have to find $100 million next year alone. You will see devastation, I believe, in municipalities not being able to pay those bills.
Could you imagine more bankruptcies?
It is a possibility, absolutely. I mean, again, just look at the math. Bankruptcy is a terrible thing. We shouldn't talk about it. Just look at the math. It's $100 million that our cities and towns will have to find in 1 year alone to pay the pension bill if that law is repealed. I don't know how we'll do it.
And that's before they worry about the local pension plans in many of those places.
Exactly right, Ted. That's before they worry about the local plan. So it's not an exaggeration to say it would be devastating to our state. That bill was about moving the state forward in the right direction. Repealing that bill would be an enormous step backwards for this state.
Back under the state law, July 1st, the switch is flipped, right?
Yes.
And we have the new retirement system going into effect. Many people watching the show right now, mainly probably because you're on, will be affected by this. So I'm wondering if you could tell them where they can get answers to any questions that they might have.
Thank you for asking that, Tim. I also have to thank my staff. My staff has been working around the clock to make sure that July 1st, the switch will be flipped. We are going to hit that deadline without a glitch, and it's because of the work of the folks that have been working for me. My website, the Treasurer's website, has constant updates. The Retirement Board's website, the Retirement Systems website has constant updates. My staff has run dozens of information sessions.
We should point out we have the website on our screen. It's www.treasury.ri.gov.
And you do, I think, have to put the www in.
Yes, we've learned that.
The hard way.
Good thing to point out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, on this topic, how swamped has your office been with calls, and have you had to increase staffing levels, move people around to handle the volume?
Yeah, it's a great question. We haven't increased staff. We've all worked harder, and it's been overwhelming, but they've responded. You know, the Retirement Board, I think right now, has a slate of about 50 sessions that it's going to be doing over the next couple of months. So what my office has been doing is it'll go out to the work site and have a session for a group of social workers, a group of teachers, a group of nurses to educate them. It's a top priority of my office. You know, change is hard. These changes affect real people and real retirement plans. So it's been critical to me that everybody knows here's how it affects you, and so you can do your planning for your future.
There's an obvious nexus, obviously, between pension reform and what you do as General Treasurer. As you know, media reports are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of unfunded liability for health care. What role do you see for yourself as General Treasurer? And if it's not your responsibility, whose responsibility is it to tame that tiger?
Excellent question. The good news is, as far as the state goes, we largely have our unfunded healthcare liability under control. So the state set up a trust.
Especially relative to cities and towns.
Especially relative to cities and towns. So the state set up a trust for its unfunded healthcare. It's been funding that trust, and also the state, kind of an important point here is that the state reformed the system several years ago and said that the state will only provide health care benefits between the period when someone leaves service and when they're Medicare eligible. Now the reform that we just passed, the pension reform, increased retirement age. So the reform that we just passed substantially reduced the health care. It was kind of a twofer. We did the pension and the health care. On the municipal, and obviously my office played a huge role, you know, in that reform. On the municipal issue, it's a big problem. Every municipality, I think, most municipalities have substantial unfunded health care liabilities.
Well, most have nothing tucked away.
And most have nothing tucked away.
And so are you going to do anything about that, or should someone else have that responsibility?
Can you fix that too, please?
Yeah, right.
Can I fix that too, please? I think that would be a bit of a stretch. You know, what my office truly has no nexus with the health care liability. So while we're there for municipalities and happy to help, I don't want to overstep. You know, that's really the governor and the mayors that have to figure that one out.
All right, with all due respect to our current guest, our website is a lot easier to remember. That is WPRI.com. We will put the link to the Treasurer's website there if you're looking for more information on pension reform. Stay with us. Our guest this week is General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White to my right, Arlene Violet, Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. Treasurer, I watched you on CNBC Squawk Box. I think you were there in March. In talking about what was the spark that got people engaged in pension reform, you said, quote, "This was about making a choice to move Rhode Island forward. No bankrupting pensions, no bankrupting cities and towns." That's not completely accurate, is it?
In what respect?
In respect that the pension reform law that you passed is not going to prevent bankrupting cities and towns.
Oh, I strongly disagree with that. The pension
3 weeks earlier, the mayor of Providence said his city's on the brink of bankruptcy. That was 3 weeks before you appeared on that program.
Well, I would put it to you like this, as I just said earlier in the segment. If that law weren't passed, cities and towns would have to find $100 million more. I think the number in Providence was almost $20 million. The city of Providence saved almost $20 million.
No question. It would be worse.
So the question would be, if the city of Providence got a bill for their pension of an additional $20 million, would have they fallen into bankruptcy? Possibly.
But you also cannot guarantee they won't. That Woonsocket won't.
Of course not. I'm sorry. Okay. No, that wasn't the point. Right. No one can guarantee that they won't. We have to make tough choices to do our best to ensure that they won't. But it is absolutely the case that that pension reform went a long way to saving them substantial money this year. I mean, as I said, it saved them $1 billion in the next 20 years. If our cities and towns had to find $1 billion in 20 years to pay pensions, they would be going bankrupt.
we're talking about cities and towns. The pension stuff gets a lot of attention, but I was interested, and I'm not even sure I fully understand it. Your office put out a release this week about creating an ocean state investment pool. What is that? Why does it matter?
Thank you for asking that, Ted. The Ocean State Investment Pool is an initiative of my office to pool the cash assets of municipalities. So it's another way that my office is looking to help municipalities do their work. Now, when a municipality floats a bond, it holds its cash maybe in a bank account. What we're saying to the municipalities is the Treasurer's office is going to manage all of that money for you. So there's economies of scale, so we can do this cost effectively, lower fees, better products, more transparency. So it's really all about better performance.
Sounds like it fits a bit with the broader regionalization discussions we have about how much should the cities and towns do independently. Do you think this is the kind of thing we need to keep thinking about as we deal with the crisis in the cities and towns?
I do. I absolutely do. Any time that we can centralize the functions of government in a way that results in greater efficiency, greater transparency, greater service, particularly now as municipal budgets are so stretched, I think we ought to look to do it.
Wouldn't the best way to do that be have all municipal pensions fall under your umbrella?
Possibly, but I do want to be clear. This is not for pensions. This is for cash assets.
Thank
so
you.
just for the viewers and such. Yes, I think ultimately the right way to fix municipal pensions going forward would be to have a single state-run system.
So do you project that you're able to achieve all the goals that you set for yourself as General Treasurer in one term, or do you feel you have to have 2 terms?
That's an excellent question. At the rate we're working now, I would say that, you know, I haven't thought about what comes next, but we're doing the Ocean State Investment Pool, we've come out against payday lending, I'm launching a financial literacy effort, we're refinancing the state's bonds.
So it sounds like
they're hard at work.
So you think you can achieve your goals in 1 term?
I don't know about that.
Probably?
Do you really not know? Are you not telling donors that you're running for governor in 2014 and, you know, letting them quietly, you know, get ready for that?
Other people have suggested that I should think about it, but it is not something that I'm spending time thinking about. You know, in this year alone, we're launching defined contribution, implementing the pension system, launching OSIP, launching financial literacy, helping municipalities with what they're doing. We just restructured over $100 million of the state's bonds and saved the state $7 million in doing that.
So do you consider that
we're hard at work in Treasury?
Do you consider past treasurers being slouches then because they were there for many years and look what you're getting done in 2 years?
Well, I would not say that at all. Look, the times require this. People have said to me, Treasurer, why are you getting involved in financial literacy? Because we have 11% unemployment. We're the only state in New England that allows payday lending. We have families suffering. We have to do it. You know, why am I getting involved in municipal pensions at all? It has nothing to do with Treasury, because we have to fix these problems.
A political operative once told Ted and I, the 2 worst things a Democrat can be is the mayor of Providence or the treasurer of Rhode Island. Do you agree or disagree with that one?
I have no comment on that. I love being treasurer. We've gotten an enormous amount done in a short period of time. I'm energized to keep going. I feel that the people of Rhode Island are ready to do big things, and we're just going to keep doing it.
Staying on politics, then, you said on this show, answering one of Ted's questions actually, that you would stand by candidates that at the General Assembly that voted for your pension reform bill. A former engaged Rhode Island employee is running against a state senator who supported your pension changes. How are you going to handle that one?
Who are you referring to?
Paul Jabor is facing an employee from Engage, Rhode Island, Maura Kelly. So,
Senator Jabor voted for pension reform,
right.
And I plan to support the endorsed Democrat in that race.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The Wall Street, we were talking about governors. The Wall Street Journal called you in that, what we showed at the top, quote, the state treasurer who single-handedly overhauled Rhode Island's pension system and has unions screaming bloody murder. Make you sound like the female Chris Christie. What do you think of that kind of characterization of your political profile here?
Do I look like the female Chris Christie?
You're much skinnier.
First of all, I want to take issue with that. Although I love the fact that Rhode Island is getting press about being a leader, I did not single-handedly do this. The General Assembly leadership got this done, and the people of Rhode Island, they came together and spoke out and demanded action, got this done. So
Didn't someone sign it?
And Governor Chafee signed the bill the very next day after the General Assembly passed it. So a little, I think, editorializing by the Wall Street Journal. Chris Christie, I don't feel that I have much in common with Chris Christie. I came to office to fix problems. The pension was a problem. It was broken, it was running out of money, it was bankrupting the state and bankrupting cities and towns. My job is to fix problems and get the state moving. So that's what I did.
Would you have any compunction about running against Governor Chafee if you chose to do that? I noticed you just sort of left him out in your litany of who should get praised. Do you think because of his efforts to reform, he should be left alone and you wouldn't challenge him?
I don't think that. He was a good partner to me. Governor Chafee campaigned on re-amortizing the debt and not touching pensions. And he came a long way and stayed with me through the entire year and signed that bill the day after the General Assembly passed it. We worked well together and continue to work well together.
But not enough that you would consider ever running against him.
You're thinking a lot more about this than I am. I don't think about running for governor. I think about being a great treasurer, so I haven't thought about it.
Treasurer, the Auditor General released, I think it was this month, a finding of an audit on the state retirement system. One of the findings is that they found there was inaccurate member service credit data. So in other words, they found about 10% of workers in the system had the wrong number of service credits or years on the job. Most were given more than they had earned. So 10% is what, about a little over 1,900 people, and that of course would impact the bottom line of the retirement system. First of all, were you aware of that before Dennis Hoyle's report, and what's being done, if anything, to address that?
Yeah, we have been working on that for I think even before I came into office. It's
an old computer system doing one, correct?
Exactly. It's an old computer system. There's no excuse. We have to fix it. We're getting better at it. We're on it. We will improve it. It's just taking a little time.
Do you have any idea how much that, not cost to fix it, but the impact of the problem is?
I don't. Not off the top of my head. I'd be happy to get it for you, though.
Okay.
I'm wondering, your background, you helped invest in companies before you were treasurer. Now you're up there at the State House. As you mentioned, we have 11.1% unemployment. We're not recovering, really, compared to other states. When you look out at the state, what do you think has gone wrong, and do you see a path to obviously you have to say it, you're a politician, but what is so wrong and why aren't we recovering, I guess?
I worry about it every day. Every day. Massachusetts, 6% unemployment, Rhode Island, 11% unemployment. And we have to figure out, why aren't we being competitive? I think fixing our fundamentals is step number one. So whether it's fixing pensions, fixing health care, fixing the way government is run so it's more efficient and effective, like we're doing with OSIP, that is step number one. Step number two is we have to market our state. About a month ago, I went to Boston and I had a meeting with all of the state's major bondholders. Fidelity, Eaton Vance, insurance companies. And I went there to pitch the state of Rhode Island. And my message to them was, invest in Rhode Island. We have great things happening. We reformed our pension. We are moving the state forward. Consider investing in the state of Rhode Island. We have new management and we have a bright future ahead of us. I think we need to do that. We need to develop our strengths and do a better job of marketing our state, because it is an increasingly competitive world, frankly, and we just have to be that aggressive.
Investors must be concerned, though, about, of course, the state, you reform the state pension system, and that's putting the state in better footing from a perception standpoint, but they must be concerned about Providence, about Central Falls, about Woonsocket, and that must also be a problem for you when you are looking to issue bonds, isn't it?
It is. There's no question about it. There were many questions around Central Falls, Providence, municipalities. I will say, very pleased to say, we ended the meeting with the bond investors asking when we're going out for our next offering. So they were interested to buy. And I'm extremely pleased to say that about a week ago, we refinanced $100 million of the state's debt. And in so doing, we were able to save the state $7 million. And if you look at the way the bond rating agencies rated that offering, every one of them harped on pension reform and what a tremendous step forward that was for the state. So what do I think? I believe in transparency. We can't sugarcoat anything. You know, if there's one thing I stand for, is we can't sugarcoat anything. We have to be honest. So I sit with the investors and say, you're right, we have municipal problems. We're working hard to fix them, but there is some good news. And that is the point of this. There is good news, and we are moving forward.
All right, General Treasurer Gina Raimondo, we appreciate you coming on the program. Once again, if you're looking for information for the landmark pension reform bill that was passed, and that's taking effect on July 1st, you can go to our website, WPRI.com. You can find Newsmakers under the on-air section at the top of your screen. For Arlene Violet and Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We will see you next week on Newsmakers. The one question I didn't get.